So my name is Hiwa Tegnekash. I'm from Ethiopia. Actually, Ethiopian Institute of Architecture and Construction Building and Urban Planning. So I'm also a fourth-year architecture student, like the rest of my colleagues.
Yep. Great. Welcome.
Hello. Hello, I'm Antje Kunze. I'm also in the group of Professor Gerhard Schmidt, Information Architecture. And I'm joining this group now because we are founding an ETH spin-off company on the development of a strategic decision support tool. So some of the method which we developed in our group, now we want to bring it to market.
Hello everyone. My name is Chen Zhong, the one who took the challenge to give you a talk 20 minutes ago.
Well, we also know Roman.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andreas Graber. I'm a biologist and environmental scientist working at the Zurich University of Applied Sciences, actually the business partner of Roman for the last 1.5 years. So my topic is mostly this water circulation of nutrients, conserving from the fish and plant section, and to drive the research and development in order to make this a commercially working prototype.
Hi everybody, I'm Nicholas Nageli. I study at the ETH Agricultural Sciences in my 3rd semester. I'm happy to be here, and I was invited by the Swiss Study Foundation. Just gonna lose some words about that. The Swiss Study Foundation was founded in 1991, and it has as an aim to support active and interested students. Yeah, they offer us like conferences and as well some learning supply, and yeah, this is quite it. And we have the chance to get some scholarships as well there, and he's my colleague from there. Yeah.
Well, exactly, my name is Len Drogenhofer. Like he already said, I'm also part of this Swiss Study Foundation. I see myself as a little bit of the odd one out here because I just finished my 1st year of mechanical engineering at the ETH, and I don't really take a lot of knowledge with me. I didn't take a lot of knowledge with me into this conference. Now I've already learned a lot, and I'm just hoping to give a little bit of a different viewpoint on some topics.
Okay. My name is Michael Tesfaye. I'm from Ethiopian Institute of Architecture, Building Construction and City Development. I'm studying 5th year, and I'll be graduating this year, at the end of this year. Thank you.
Yeah, just to frame, so you see you have a chance to ask questions to all the groups that were there, and then we wanted to have the outside view, and the Ethiopian students prepared the presentation together, so that's why they will actually be then representing their partners. All right, so first, are there some spontaneous questions from the audience, or are there things that you would like to have clarified? Yeah, we can.
Just to start with the end, a technical issue. It's clear that when you grow fish at a certain density, you start to have real problems of the health of the fishes in different issues. So how do you deal with this balance which you have to get in order to prevent all these mold infections and whatever what it is?
Thank you very much for this challenging question. Of course, that's the first question we always are confronted with. It's very interesting. Everybody can talk about football, even me, but I'm not playing football. And the day we were opening our cargo container farm and showing to people that we were now raising fish in there, everybody was an expert about animal welfare. And that's a benefit for us, because this gives us not only the duty but also the opportunity to explain what it means. And it's also interesting that many customers who were just consuming fish, maybe for lunch this afternoon, before they were standing in front of the aquarium, they never asked that question, well, where does this fish now come from that I have on my plate? And so, of course, it's our duty, and also we have very good regulations in Switzerland to consider animal welfare. As we have the opportunity to grow in the city, we are not so much stressed, or we are not optimizing the system in a commercial way, that we have to go for very high densities, as they go with salmon and other fish, up to 100 kilo fish in 1,000 liters of water. Our target density is about 30 kilogram of fish per cubic meter, which is still in the limit for organic agriculture. But still, if people will see the fish cage, they will think, well, this is mass cultivation. Whatever industrialization did with chickens, now they do it with fish. They continue the bad story. But that's part of the explanation and of the education also. Well, either you decide, I want to eat the fish, so you have to breed it, raise it, and even kill it. Can you imagine if you become an urban farmer at home, you are going to serve your colleague that comes for dinner your own fish that you have killed yourself, getting your hands bloody in some way? Well, that's some ethical questions that really need to be addressed, but we can address them. And I'm very well aware of the fact that our technical proposition is also an ethical provocation. Because nowadays, consumer can say, well, whatever I buy in the supermarket, the sin is already done. The animal is dead. Now it's good if I can convert it. But once you get involved in the cycle, it changes perspectives. And that's very interesting, but also provocating.
We can maybe directly go to the second question. Did that answer your question, by the way? Yep.
Okay. You have to be careful to keep your fish population healthy for the to be sustainable.
Of course. And that's also maybe, I try to make this short now, it's a risk. If anybody just at home starts to grow fish in his aquarium, it's a risk. But the larger the facility is and the more professional he can address technical tasks to control the system, the better it is. That's why we are focusing our energy towards system control and operation control.
Okay, I think we are quite impressed about the professional approach here. With the young professionals here, there's a lot of hope for future cities, innovation and fantasy and professional approach. Congratulations. And my question goes also to the farmers. How about pollution? I mean, cities are highly polluted and the air is full of exhausts of, the burners, the boilers, the air conditioners and so forth and so forth. How about pollution? Question number one. And second one, how about the business case? Is that a profitable business or do you have to have subsidies?
I'd like to start with the second question because I'm a business person. It took solar industry 30 years to reach 3% market share at a subsidization rate in Germany of 8 billion annual. Swiss farmers get subsidized with 3 billion Swiss francs annually, and the average subsidy rate for a European farmer is 65%. So Urban Farmers is a startup. We've raised 2.2 million Swiss francs in the last 12 months. We're not going to be profitable until we can scale urban rooftop farming significantly beyond what we're right now doing, which is, proof of concept, pilot farming, first, crazy guys, they're going to buy the product, and are going to be the early adopters. So it's a classic clean tech case. It relies on two drivers you see in any business: economies of scale and learning curve. So, the first car didn't work as well as Henry Ford might have thought, and ultimately he made it work. So this is what we're facing. So a classical story, no, but yes, we believe we can. And the first one you asked is, I would say, one of the top two questions we always get is, what about pollution in the city? Well, Andreas usually replies and says, you also give your partner a kiss when she or he comes back from home and from work, and he also has been in the city, so why don't you, eat the tomato? That's the provocative answer. The very straightforward technical answer is, a greenhouse is a really nice shell, a clean shell to control air, humidity, temperature, pesticides, quality of what you have inside this greenhouse. So it's actually a very, very robust and proven technology to grow food at high quality. So we're not seeing this as an issue. I think technically that's an answer. That whether it's going to satisfy you once you're going to be on the roof in Singapore or in Beijing, looking at the sky and thinking whether you're going to eat this tomato is up for proof. We don't know. But we believe yes, because I think we can credibly show that this is much better than a tomato, buying it from the supermarket, which has had a couple people touching it and a couple thousand kilometers in order to get there where you're going to consume it. So, it's trade-offs, and again, pushing us in a direction to be very transparent and very upfront about what the consumer is seeing is what he's getting. So, we hope we can answer positively in the next couple of months when we launch Basel.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dirk?
I think I just want to continue on that one. Number one is I think it's fantastic what you're doing, okay? And I think I really admire your courage and admire your trust and the way you present and you market yourself is fantastic. It's great. This morning, Ludger Hovestadt was showing us a very interesting diagram. So he said in the Middle Ages, he called it the ages of the soil, while then in the 20th century we moved to the age of capital, and now he's provoking or promoting the idea of skill or intelligence as the goal. So when you presented, I asked myself two things. Number one is, aren't you very romantic to go back to the age of soil? And number two, I asked myself, you mentioned that very briefly in the beginning of your presentation, that you could also understand farming not as a soil or agricultural based idea, but farming, for example, as an energy based idea. So I'm constantly asked, because this urban farming is becoming very popular right now in these discussions about future cities and so on and so on. So it's a question, I have no answer. Okay? The question for me would be to you now, because you're engaged so much, we also need to rethink the idea of a farmer. And wouldn't it make sense to understand maybe farming in the sense of farming energy instead of farming vegetables and fish, which create a lot of questions and problems that we just saw?
I'd like to take on the first question. I was very much impressed by this presentation this morning, and I made a few checks on my notes to say, well, I'm now even assured that we are on the right track. We do not use soil. The whole production is in the water, so this will be soilless cultivation of plants, because it's much easier to distribute nutrients, to control irrigation, so that's one technical aspect. And the other aspect is, yes, we're going back towards soil in the terms of we make use of the land. And the value of the land is not the land itself, but the energy that the sun provides down to the surface. So 1 year ago I said, well, in the ancient days, we built roofs in order to protect rainfall entering the building. 20 years ago, we discovered, well, we could use the energy. But as we have also heard this morning, energy is much easier transportable. It can be produced anywhere. It can also be transported through grids with some loss. But food is something which is still material-based. This means transporting, storing, shipping, handling food, which is also a perishable item, is much more complicated. So it makes much more sense to integrate the food concept into the city. And the energy, we can even store it with fuels or whatever. So maybe that's the first part, to say, well, we can decide if we are successful in proving that this is also commercially viable on the roof. You can decide, do you want to use sunlight for energy production or for food production? Right now, the last 30 years, I've been seen quite a lot of research going into one direction only. And maybe you to take the second one.
No, I mean, I agree with what you said. It's very clear where we go. We get a lot of eyeballs and a lot of, let's say, interest. And I think that urban agriculture and urban farming is something, as a marketing guy, I can only express it this way. It's very much rooted in our psychological basic needs. And I think seeing urban agriculture back in the city, you could argue, is a romantic vision. But I think we're translating it with technology, with a business case, and with a robustness that makes sense. So yeah, why not? Why not live the dream or be romantic about this? If people want it, it's gonna be the apple of sustainability. Why not? I mean, yeah. I think you need to say, if it's romantic and people love to buy it, that's great.
Okay, maybe I can also add something on this. I really liked your business idea. And from my experience, so I also live in Zurich, in Affolter, next to Oerlikon. And we have a small garden where we also plant tomatoes and salad. And I think it's, I also want to see, for example, comparison between, for example, a tomato, which you plant here in Zurich, and then the CO2 amount, for example, if you buy a tomato from Spain. Not like, I think in such small thing, I think this is like the base for a sustainable city to start. And your business idea is also like a good point, for example, to teach children, for the food and how you plant these vegetables. And I think there are more opportunities on this. I really like it. Thank you.
I could maybe ask a question for you. I mean, we're a developer, we're a system developer. We're looking for customers, i.e. operators of urban farms. So the question I would like to maybe ask you is, how could system solution operators like us and your tool, which is going to give decision makers criteria to say, okay, should I build a swimming pool or a solar farm or a rooftop and a solar farm? How can we as system developers become a decision point for urban planners? I think that is a question I would like to ask you maybe for playback.
Okay. For example, we have one project together with the city of Zurich where we are developing a visualization tool to show the zoning laws of the city of Zurich. And they use this tool, for example, to see in which areas they can increase the density. And with this tool, which we develop in our spin-off company, which is one part of an EU project, where we want to have like a web-based interface to combine different information layers. For this, I think the decision makers, for example, the city planners, for example, in Zurich, they can see indicator where they have, for example, the air pollution, also what Shannon says, and a transport system, and for example also like areas where they can implement your ideas for the urban farmers, and therefore for the development of their new districts or the improvement of the district, they really can visualize these ideas.
I would like to add something on this point. Because last year I did something similar. I think it's okay to answer your questions. It's an urban dynamic model. Besides, I think you mentioned the supply chain in your system, right? And besides supply chain, we have more things. The life cycle assessment. Mm-hmm. Life cycle assessment is to evaluate the environmental impact during the whole supply chain. And the life cycle is from farming to the pollution, to the waste part, and even including how we dealing with the pollutions, and how. And like in Singapore, they use the waste to do landfilling. Mm-hmm. It's a way to solve the pollution problems. And so, for your question, I think this could be a solution. I mean, not just supply control, but also environmental impact control. Yeah.
Okay, I maybe want to redirect just slightly. We heard that the romantic notion of farming in the city. In the presentation from our colleagues from Ethiopia, there we heard that the combination of the urban and the rural for you guys is something that is important to keep it vivid, to keep it fun, to keep it lively. All of that, of course, then there is a lot of questions that come up with hygiene, because you showed some images with animals living together or very close by with people. Well, the fish are maybe more easily controllable, but there's a lot of technology there. Can you maybe comment about this? Is that considered in your plan or your ideas of how you could integrate this?
Yeah, maybe I would also ask a question, maybe, because we have urban farming in our city also, but it's not on top of buildings, it's beside buildings. We have two main river sheds as presented by Alpha, and there are actually many urban farmers in the city. What I would like to redirect again as a question is, how is the effect of land use? Like, if people now get the roof to be used as an urban farming, now they could use existing urban farmlands as a building, and then, okay, now we have a roof to build on. So, could there be a shift from a land into an urban into a roof farming, and also the scale of your the surface to a city height ratio? Like, for example, in cities which are very high populated with high skyscrapers, the ratio between people and building height and the surface of the roof is very small, and the surface of the roof is always the same actually in every city, but the height difference make a lot of difference. So if it's a low rise, it doesn't make sense, maybe because of access and lots of reason to make an access to the roof. So how do you think the ratio of building height and urban farming surface could be? I mean, aside.
Well,
yeah.
One easy guess is to say, well, the higher the building, the higher the cost of the produce, because it will have had the cleaner air. So let's stay to maybe also to your question about the farmer's role. There have been some case studies that were presented last year at the World Landscape Architecture Congress in Switzerland, from Casablanca, from Canada even, Montreal, showing that you could possibly grow 20 to 25% of the city's food needs within the city. But of course, this large number comes from cultivating many open areas, parks, for example, that were converted into gardens in Montreal, and also using the suburbs in Casablanca. So I don't see any sense in building a roof on a farmland in order to build an urban farm. Our proposition is to give an alternative use of existing roofs. And also I think with this urban farming approach, we will not address rice growing, because you can never compete with an industrial price. And I think also the consumer will not that much appreciate, a rooftop rice over a standard rice. But I think in a fish and in other products like herbs, he can see an advantage of the freshness and also get a personal, emotional link to the production. And I think very much is about that point, also in the soil point and also in this outrage. Our children nowadays, they want to reconnect with the way how the food was grown. And it's a question of lifestyle, not a question of buying cheap food. It's a question of quality consciousness, but more so of lifestyle.
Yep.
I would like to answer for the question that you were suggesting right now, and
thank you.
Actually, this is not the straight to the point answer, but personally, my grandparents lived in a farm, and they used to have this small house, and in this small house they have their bedroom and their living space, and then just next to their bedroom there is this space called Gada. We call it Gada in the Amhara region actually. So this space is just separated from the bedroom just by fence type wood structures. And then this, as they have told me, this is because security reason, and they want to take care of their cattle from hyenas and other wild animals, so that they are not eaten. So this security reason led to being next to their animals, and the closeness grew. So right now, as I have seen, the city have grown and many new and modern houses have been built. And what they have done is they have used, instead of that structural wood fence type material, they have used just normal wall with wood and mud, and that takes care of the cleaning problem. And they have just a door so that they can access from the bedroom to their animal spaces.
But so do you think that this is appropriate or feasible or possible in a booming city like Addis Ababa?
When you see the culture of the people, we have identity, and this identity cannot be forgotten, and that's what makes us who we are. So the closeness of the people with their animals, there is a saying in our country which is a farmer dies before his animal. Let's say when drought comes and you have to eat the animal, of course, if there is a drought, but they will not eat the animal. They care about the animal. Instead, they'll just die hungry. That was just a saying, actually. So, anyways, what I'm trying to say is the people are very caring, not only to people, but to also their animals. And that's what matters to them.
Okay. Interesting. Oh yeah, please.
Follow-up question on that, and really going a little further. One of the things I think we're going to hear about it tomorrow as well, if I remember correctly, is what I've noticed these last few days is that a lot of the time we're taking technology that we have and knowledge that we have to Africa, to Asia, and trying to use it there. And what I was wondering is if the two of you, or even the four of you, if you feel that technology or just habits like you have it with your type of urban farming, with your animals that are close to your house, if now that you've seen Switzerland, if you think that something like that would be possible here, and if not, then why not? Or if you think that we could learn from you as well.
Okay, I think farming as a discipline has grown for many centuries, and as you say, there could be new technologies arising, but basically the overall knowledge is there, and we might have a lot to learn from Switzerland if it's about technical stuff, but if it's about the way we relate ourselves into our farmland, as she said, and into our animals, it's, I think, a different sociological question to learn from. But yeah, but it's interesting. Maybe I didn't get your question clearly. If there is something you learn from us regarding.
What I meant is that if you think it's possible that we in Switzerland we learn to use or adapt to maybe keep our animals like you do, because for you it works, and here it's something that we don't know.
Yes. Yeah, it's a difficult question, but I think because every society needs to know where the food comes from, or where needs to know basic stuff like where do you get your clothes off, because at some point in your life there could be a catastrophe or a natural disaster. Then you have to go back into maybe the old way of doing stuff. It happened in many civilizations throughout. Maybe from now on it could not be the same case, but I think you could use it as a basic knowledge. And also there are new typologies like Sudo, for example, a housing unit which is not to answer the first question, another question also, that give a room for such, in our country, that give a room for urban agriculture without increasing the height of the buildings. It's only G+1, so you'll have a small plot of land in your ground, so maybe not at the roof, maybe at the bottom you could do such stuff. So if such typologies could be implemented maybe in the rural parts of Switzerland, then it could be the case.
Okay, apparently first Antje wants to...
Maybe to sum up this discussion now a little bit, I think you saw there we have different case studies, so Addis Ababa, future cities, and then we have also the case studies in Zurich or Switzerland. And each area has their own identity, and it's really important if we want to transfer different technologies that we adapt this technology also to the specific context and to the specific case study area. And for example, we have one national research program where also the group of Marc Angelil and Professor Schmid participating. And the goal is to improve the urban quality in Switzerland. And for there, we're developing different tools also to include the inhabitants and different stakeholders, decision makers, and interest groups in this research, and to foster the discussion on this topic, how we can improve the urban quality there. And what I think you saw also here, there are a lot of ideas which coming up from the bottom to top, also what Professor Hofestadt mentioned this morning. And I think, this is the future, and we have to foster this, and also to really invite the inhabitants in the different case studies to participate in this planning process.
Actually, maybe, and then perhaps we should ask some more questions from the audience, but you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I would just say something. And basically it was just to quickly get up, because I think everybody's just feeling tired. If I look here, just get up, quickly gather. Come on.
Good idea. Good one.
Yeah, and just relax, and I think we just speak maybe just some seconds like that. What I wanted to make a follow-up of Leni. I spent 1 year in Honduras, and I lived there with chickens as well. Well, in Honduras, and I think we should learn from this lands there that it can be a good deal of fun as well to have the animals near the house and to live with this urban farming, because now I'm having bees in my house as well. So I do my own honey, and it's just a big deal of fun. And I think if we learn that it can be as well like a leisure time for us, then everybody would do it like voluntarily, and I think that would be a good approach. Okay, just get back. And then I would maybe lead the discussion to another direction, because yesterday and today as well, I noticed that we were always speaking of like civilization and landscape, and this like contrary. And I love to maybe think of it as a whole, because, well, human is part of the environment and nature as well. And so why do we always think this is the city and this is the landscape, and we have to preserve the landscape, maybe build it, because everybody is constructed and built anyway in Switzerland. You can go and it's not natural space, there's hardly any left, right? Just maybe in the Swiss park. So why don't we think like, maybe why aren't a city or not, they could be forests as well. I would go even further, not just make urban agriculture, but just integrate like the cities in the environment, and just think at it as a whole. And I think maybe it's, there I'm inspired by Will McDonough and Michael Braungart. I don't know, Cradle to Cradle, if you know that concept. But I think this goes beyond that maybe we should not use poison to build our houses, but maybe rather, as you suggested as well, that we come back to structures and build and construction material that doesn't harm our environment. We should bring it together again. I think this is our big problem. Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to share something of that, or you as well.
Well, that's maybe okay. Yeah.
Just to answer to your question directly, I would come halfway. I would not have a cow in a bank or a swimming pool, but I would have a small cabbage garden in my backyard as a person, and as a person living in the city, because, you know, man should, I also accept your suggestion, man should always, or women should always be attached to environment, and be attached to nature, be attached to whatever they can produce, they should produce. I believe in that. Just because I am an architecture student doesn't mean I can't grow my own tomatoes. And it should be that way. I don't have to travel, 7-8 kilometers to buy my grocery from an open market. And yes, I would have that in my place. And I was really happy when we went to in the last week to ETH in Hogenberg. We saw cows, and we were like, okay, this is not only our city thing. So there are cows in just next to one of the good universities for architecture or engineering. And yes, I would really do that.
Yeah, thanks. So it seems that we agree that keeping tomatoes in the city is important, but unfortunately the cows will have to go because there will be student housing soon. So, but we also appreciate the cows in front of the Science City logo. That is highly appropriate. Can I ask for maybe some other questions or comments from the audience for our... Yes, please.
I still have a different question. Maybe it can shift a little bit the discussion to the Ethiopian colleagues. Here in Switzerland, the people who got sensitive to the climate changes are because they saw pictures of the glacier 10 years ago and now. From Africa, one knows that in many countries in Africa, the impact of climate changes is much bigger than what we sense and we feel here in Switzerland. So in your planning, in your vision 2050, do you think that in fact the break on the climate changes will not take place before 20 years? I think everybody agrees about this, if we can break this curve a little bit. And my question is, to which extent these climate changes will bring difficulties to your vision, to your way you will have your concept of the development of cities, if it's possible to answer this.
Sorry. You want to answer this? Okay.
But told that was actually part of 2050. Maybe you could answer if it's.
I'll do this again. Yes, we are one of the few people who are really getting this global climate change crisis. And because our country is called 13 months of sunshine, because we have sun even in the coldest time of the year. But now it's really even getting a little closer to the cold we have in Switzerland now. And the Addis 2050 vision is actually not presented to the public yet. We are going to do that on October 9, but it's not a it's not like a one-day solution. We are now in 2012, and we have at least 38 years to go there. So we don't only intend, we did not intend to plan the end point. We also went through the process and what would happen in 2012, what would happen in 2020, what would happen in 2030, and we also try to tackle these issues that feed into this climate change, like pollution of cars and energy production and energy consumption as well. And yes, if we don't do something today, that curve will be so high and we won't be able to return like any part of the world is doing now. Did I answer your question in a way? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to add up on that, even though we are not as large part of the climate pollution part, but yeah, as you said, the main effect is in Africa. But the government is also very taking its initiative into promoting the zero carbon future vision, and also Ethiopia was part of the leading team from Africa regarding climate change in United Nations. So I think it's a very current issue, and it's a very issue that has to be addressed, and I think also in the 2050 we will see it.
Are there other questions or comments from the audience? No. I wanted actually maybe to quickly come back to Chen, and we heard again, I guess Professor Hoverstad gave us a lot to think about this morning, and it seems that the simulation platform is very good at helping you to include more and more information to try to make you to make decisions. And so Ludger Hoverstad was actually arguing that you would want to exclude. So are you reacting to that, or are you doing something in that? So what are effective ways to use the simulation platforms? We heard about case studies in Zurich and Singapore, but is there something that you can say, this is an application that you can show to Professor Hoverstad, that perhaps there is something about inclusion and a smart way of combining information also that helps you to do smart things with relation to cities?
Yeah, I can't do it now, but I hope I can do it. As you mentioned, we are moving from mechanic city to dynamic city to quantum city, and I agree with that. I hope one day we can come here with an application, and we can input all kinds of information in, and the system can automatically learning from the situation, like machine learning, become more and more smart, and then comes a solution. It's a perfectly integrating all kinds of knowledge that, and in that way we can have a direct impact on the space.
Yeah. Well, my question was perhaps a little bit, sorry to push it a bit, but visualization helps you to understand facets, but you also have to make choices on what you visualize and what you combine. And so it's more in that sense that how can you deal with this? Are there maybe other strategies or complementary strategies that allow you to go about dealing with a lot of data in other ways?
I have to say, as I mentioned at the beginning, we said that get a better understanding to support urban design, which means the requirement is actually from the designers. Means they want to know, for example, they want to know the density in the urban space, and then we integrating kinds of information, try to represent the density for them. I mean, now we don't have, as I mentioned before, we don't have a direct impact on the space. It's indirect. We have an impact through designers, which means it's more that, and for your question is that we got the requirement and we got what kind of qualities they want to know, and then we give this specific visualization, specific simulation to support them to make a decision making, not us.
Okay. Yep.
And maybe to continue with it, we have one implemented case study where we use these methods. This is for the National Research Foundation program, Sustainable Urban Patterns. And therefore we have more than 25 stakeholders of the Limmatal which are involved in our strategic planning decisions. And the stakeholders from the different Gemeinden, like from Schlieren, Didikon, Baden, and also from City of Zurich, and also from interest groups like for the Limmatalbahn. And there we have like annual meetings with them where they're really discussing the 3D models which we are producing for the different scenarios for the Limmatal for 2030 and 2050. And therefore we implement also different scenarios, for example, for the traffic. and also social and urban quality criteria and economic criteria. So we have therefore direct impact and outcome also from the stakeholders.
Okay. So I'll ask one more time if there is some last questions perhaps, and otherwise I would actually ask all the participants to you have a chance to give a last question, comment, statement. Particularly I'm interested from our Ethiopian friends. I heard that some of you even never have left until recently Addis Abeba, and so what is this experience? What did it bring you? I'm curious, I hope the audience agrees to quickly hear so last week you did a summer school that had more to do with urbanization in economics and future cities in that sense. And so we had the FCL workshop on Monday and Tuesday where you saw what ETH is doing in Singapore, and then now we have this very different but also very stimulating environment. So let's maybe start with Miguel, or do you need to think about it? You wanted to say, yeah, okay, let's start here.
Before even you gave me the chance, I was trying to come up with something because I was really thinking about some things that went on this last week and this week also. It has been a very wonderful experience for me personally, and also as I can see from each one of my friends' faces, well, we are very amazed and we are very honored to be here. On the last week, I think I may have mentioned this before. There was a professor, Professor Bernard, and the first day we got in, and he was telling us about this complementary currency thing. He asked, "Who's confused?" Remember? So everybody got his hand up, and everybody was confused. At first, when I got here, I was really confused. Like, why are we here? As she asked, she was asking, like, how can we connect these things? And these are different issues. Well, as I have understood, why we are here is to make a change to the world, to make the world a better place. Even if we are from Ethiopia, even if you are from Germany, Swiss, America, London, you call it wherever. It's the world, and we have to make it a better place. And I think it starts with each one of us. And what we can provide and what we can share to each one of us, that matters. Because each one of us has different professionals and different experiences and different skills. When we tell that to each other, we develop that. And we make the world a better place. And I think that's why we are here. Even though the topics don't mix up.
Thank you, Huey. So you can also better the world? Do you want to say a last thing or make a last comment or an experience shared? Or?
Yes, I think, how you said, this is the goal from everybody, from us, to make the city or the world a better place. And we have to decide, also what Professor Overstadt mentions this morning, it has to come from bottom to up, top down, bottom up. Yes.
Jen?
Yeah.
Are you still angry that we ordered you to
No. I'm very happy. I'm very happy to be here to hear this discussion. The last thing I want to say is about future cities. And I really want to know, unfortunately I've never been to Ethiopia before, but I know there are some of the area in Ethiopia still not city yet. Yeah, there will be a city there. And then I really want to know what kind of future cities you want. And my experience, I'm in Singapore for 1 year, and then I came here temporarily working here in Switzerland. I think I really like here. When I look at Zurich, it's kind of perfect combination. I mean, city and farmland surrounding there. And it's real soil. Unlike questions. I really like it. And then I really want to know, maybe later you can answer my questions. Who are your clients? Maybe your clients are in Singapore. They have limited land, they can't have real soil, so they need the roof farming. In that case, to that aspect, I wish you have less clients. Well, this may be against technology, but that is my view of future cities. I prefer that kind of future cities. We can have real royal. We can really touch the natural things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I have a wish as a closing. Tomorrow morning, while you will still be sleeping at around 5:30 tomorrow AM, I'm actually on a conference call with the Agriculture and Veterinary Authority of Singapore. We're asking for $1 million in grant funding for these guys, actually, for the Singapore-based ETH researchers to do a joint project with urban farmers. And yes, if you're still in your dreams, think about me pitching there and possibly getting the business. So tomorrow, 5:30 in the morning.
I think saving the planet is a worthy goal to live for, but it's too far away to start working on that. And I think what could be, or in my view now, I take the sense that the common topic we are talking about is just people. What shall I do tomorrow? What would you do tomorrow? Each of us carries its own perspective on the world, and I think we are trying to be magicians, to foresee what will be the society's need in 10 or 20 years. And as Professor Hovenstedt has mentioned this morning, well, you don't need to just provide infrastructure and let capitalism thrive. Well, that's a bad idea. The last one. Yeah. I very much like the presentation, but I don't think that capitalism will organize itself. And I think what we are seeing now is really a global massive change, not only this trend by saying, well, we will have 70% of the population in the cities. Of course, that raises a lot of tension between generations, between your grandfathers. My grandfather was also a cattle farmer, even in the Alpine region. And our youngsters will want to reconnect with that, and that's maybe our challenge with urban farmers by saying, well, we have a business alone using lifestyle as an argument. But I think it's really about the society which is maturing, and this is very nice circular development, sort of from the capital back to the skill, and then also to the emotion. I think it's still everybody's on the search towards what is the goal of mankind and how can you find pleasure, and the answer for each one is different, and that's something that we have to accept. And also this rule between society, capitalism and politics, that's still some stuff to think about and to drink on this evening, I think.
Yeah. Well, I hope that Professor Hovenstedt joins you for some drinking. I saw him sneak out, so unfortunately you'll have to repeat your questions to him later tonight. Please.
Yeah. It's not my first conference I'm at in relation to that kind of subject, and it always makes me happy to meet so many smart ideas and illusions and visions as well. And however, what made me sad is that sometimes people doesn't implement the things, all these nice things. What we heard maybe today of Professor Hans-Jörg Leibengut, it was so, it's so inspiring, it's brilliant, it's genius. But then on the other hand, I have my neighbor there in Zurich who buys a new gas heating, and it's just that's my problem. So I think now it's the moment to act, and I all invite you to act with me.
Well, I guess I can only add to what he said that, I really came into this conference without a lot of knowledge about this topic, but I was aware of the fact that something has to be done, because obviously with population growth and city growth, we are facing a lot of problems. And if there's one thing I took with me so far is that there's a lot of potential there. There's so many technologies we've heard of and so many ideas that I really feel the same way, that the problem that I see, the main problem, is getting this technology and getting these ideas back to the everyday person. that they use it in their own lives. And I live in a very rural and very conservative area of Switzerland, in Schwyz, and there every person who puts a solar panel on the roof or wants to has nearly a political fight to be able to do that, even if he wants to. And I think that's one of the big problems we're facing. But I think today's society is, for me, the thing that defines us is that we are so global, that we're so connected, that we're so interactive. And that's why I really enjoyed this conference so much, because it's a little piece of networking and globalization in itself. I mean, we have people from different continents and different cultures coming together and just sharing their ideas and sharing the knowledge that they have. And that's why I think that we're definitely going in the right direction. And thank you.
Thank you. And my experience is like many other African people know about European or about Western culture a lot because they see it on movies, on pictures or stuff. But to be here and experience it is something different. When you see it on the movies, maybe you only see it in a two-dimensional stuff, only feel the three-dimensional, the social stuff. Just you only imagine it, or it's over-romanticized, or it's sometimes. To be here and experience it is something different. And we have been here for 15 or 16 days, and except Sunday we were on workshops. So we heard a lot from people who know a lot about lots of things. So it has been a very interesting experience. And something, of course, I wasn't directly part of the Addis 2050 vision, but something I could see is that it's as a vision, we could not be something like European country. We have to develop our own way of urbanism, maybe alternate different kind of urbanism and different, or maybe parallel urbanism. And the good thing could be like Europeans pass through many different eras, like through Gothic or from classical period into the modern and stuff. But now we know what are the good and the bad parts of such movement. So we have lots of knowledge. I think if we could educate Africans and Ethiopians have knowledge, then they could build on what's already existing. But what's left is, as you said, to do something. If we do something, then I think there's the knowledge, maybe knowledge transfer and doing something. And thank you very much also for inviting us into this conference.
Yeah. Yes, I would not forget you. You can also.
Okay. I would do this standing because it makes me comfortable. I would like to reflect on a couple of things. For you first, you said, what kind of cities do you want in the future? I would go back to last week's encounter we had with Professor Bernard, and I would tell you, I'm guessing everybody's well aware of yin and yang, the balance between the yin and the yang forces. And I would tell you, I would want to have a yin planned, yang implemented city, because a yin planned city promotes cooperation. I'm quoting from Professor Bernard. A yin planned city promotes circulation. A yin planned city promotes transparency. It believes in distribution of wealth, and it believes in investment in infrastructure. And a yang planned city or a yang implemented city will promote competition. It would promote accumulation of wealth and accumulation of knowledge. It would invest in and work on hierarchy and the strongest standing, the firm standing beliefs. And I would want that. And from what unlike a couple of our friends here, I've also been to Singapore 5 days before I came to Switzerland. And it was, for me, it was being pulled out of a pot of something else and being put into a pot of something else. And I had to find the combination and the perfect combination in those two. And then I say to myself, okay, I really need to say something. And the past week as well, we were told, if your family chooses the wrong doctor, you'll be sick your whole life. You will not find what your sickness is. And now we are trying to be not the wrong doctors. We came here to see what's being done in other places and what we can take the most out of. I think these are a couple of things, and I totally disagree with you as well. Yes, because it's not too far. In order to save 1 million Swiss franc, you'll have to start with one. Even though 1 million is so far away, today is one. So you have to, I believe, I'll have to keep the 1 million in sight, but out of reach, and then insight, and then start working through that. My last comment is to Professor Oswald. Yes, our quiet days are over. We are speaking, and we are going to work on what we're speaking. Otherwise, we walk the walk, and that would just be it. So now we're talking, and we are walking as well. Thank you very much.
You want to say something, or are you happy?
Yeah, almost everything is said here, but I was impressed with two things. The first thing was the Limmat River and the Lake of Zurich. I was very impressed how it's integrated within the city. And the other thing is, while we were in our first hotel, there were so many posters, and there were only cows on the posters. So I really liked that one. Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think it looks like everyone is ready to close this session. It seems I was surprised that there was such a strong emphasis or consensus on how important soil is, even though it is a romantic notion. We often focus, indeed, we heard about form, we heard about progress, process in city development, urbanization. But apparently the roots with the nature, the integration and all of that is something that has not been addressed, and that came back and back through this, perhaps a little bit triggered by the urban farmers, but still. And so I ask you to thank our panel here, and please also the two presenters from Ethiopia that are sitting in the front row, and thank them for their input. And I hope that you all listened carefully, because I think they had some honest things to say that we really should take care of and not forget when we're planning our mega, future, whatever kind of cities. Thank you, and see you later.